Hello, hello. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. I'm very excited to be here. Let me find my clicker. Green is forward, they tell me. So my name is Leon. I'm the co-founder and chief product and strategy officer at Elsewhen. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to talk about being inside the Agentic enterprise. And yeah, my name is Leon. I'm the co-founder, chief, and product strategy officer at Elsewhen. You can find me on LinkedIn and X. At Elsewhen, we run your most expensive operations for a third of the cost with custom AI. So I want to start with this slide, just to remind ourselves how fast this technology has been diffusing. We've never seen anything like this before. It's incredible, the uptake in enterprise and in consumer, and we're bound to make a few wrong turns. But the good news is that we all have this magic box. And it's incredible because it's accessible to everybody. It's not locked into one high ivory tower. And the question is, how should you use the magic box? And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of options. This is just the blue chip. There's open source, open weight. There's loads and loads of models to choose from. At a very short amount of time, the market is full of models, which is, again, incredible. And LLMs are becoming a commodity fast. So yeah, Mythos released yesterday their model. I bet that the frontier labs are going to be there very, very quickly. And then what's exciting and interesting is that the Chinese models, the open source models, the open weights models are very fast behind. So this is very much a commodity. So much that even Sam Altman himself recently set this up. I think it was a BlackRock conference. And he said, we see a future where intelligence is a utility like electricity or water, and people buy it from us on the meter. So what more do you need than Sam Altman himself pre-IPO telling you that this is a commoditized product? OpenAI and Claude are targeting enterprise. This is where they see the biggest bang for the buck in terms of diffusion of this technology. So Anthropic seems like they've always been an enterprise. OpenAI recently did a massive turn. They killed Sora. They're starting to move their product in the direction of enterprise. And they've been quite good at it. Codex is a great model. It's very good at knowledge work as well. And the prediction that the majority of the tokens consumed are actually going to be in enterprise. And more than that, these businesses which sell tokens are setting up consultancy arms and JVs to make sure that enterprises can embed this technology properly. So what is the total addressable market of OPEX? The opportunity is the operational cost of all of enterprise. And it's very hard to estimate. McKinsey here gave a stab, 6 to 8 trillion per year, going up to 15 to 22 trillion by 2040. There's a lot of money to be made in enterprise. And chat is terrible UX. This much we know. This is what we found out so far, and kudos for Microsoft for putting a product out there and kind of doing it, but we know that slapping a chat interface on top of productivity software is just not working. Also, we recently learned that tokenmaxxing is a terrible idea. So pouring tokens all over your enterprise is just not going to work, and this is phenomenal. There's an enterprise that spent, a client that spent $500 million in a single month of token spent. Uber CEO famously spent his entire budget for a year in a few months. But token prices are actually collapsing. They're tanking. So it's cheaper and cheaper to buy this technology. So what's going on? Token spend is an AI scalability problem, not a model problem. You need to think about boring stuff. You need to think about your context quality, model routing, harness design, measurement. And if enterprises are not going to figure it out, startups will. This is Paul Graham, the co-founder of Y Combinator, telling you that this technology works. Enterprises have to figure out how to use this technology. And I want to talk a little bit about what an agent is, because I think there's a lot of confusion, and I think it's very simple, and we should just unpack it. And I'm going to use OpenClaw, which is an open source personal assistant that runs on your machine or server. It's a very clean implementation of an agent. It's actually genius in its simplicity, and in retrospect, we kind of go and say, hey, how we didn't think about that? It's obviously that. It was invented by Peter Steinberg, who's now been hired by OpenAI, so I expect that OpenAI is going to implement a bunch of this stuff as well. And actually, it's all been totally written by an agent. So it's completely agentic engineering. Peter didn't write a single line of code. And it's the fastest growing open source project of all time on GitHub. So what is an agent? An agent is a large language model that doesn't just chat with you, it can act in real world on your behalf. It has a brain, it has tools, CLI, browser, API, memory, and a loop to keep it working even when you're not talking to. And it's essentially a bunch of scripts. It's a Node.js app written in TypeScript. So in OpenClaw world, this is how the loop works. It can observe, so it checks new messages, tasks, calendar, files, etc. It thinks, what should I do next to achieve my goals? It breaks down the complex tasks into steps, and it uses tools. It says what happened, and then repeats it, has a heartbeat. It's a loop. So I want to talk about the command line interface, CLI, because it's super important. Because this is the real power that an agent has. It can control everything on your computer through a terminal. So if you're a nerd, you know what this is. If you're not, you probably opened it up a few times and went, what the hell is that? But it's text-based. So that's why it's such a fit with an LLM. And increasingly, all software is opening up this interface, a CLI interface for agents. It's a really big deal. So let's talk about work in enterprises. Work is essentially an algorithm. It's a series of steps to accomplish a goal. And a company is a collection of algorithms. So if you think about this, and you think about it in the context of this technology, it really starts to make sense now. A lot of company processes look like this right now. This is actually from one of our clients, and it's anonymized and stuff, but this is a 2-week process across different actors, doing different steps with different software. It's manual, fragmented, and slow. With agents, humans' role shifts to the left, from executing to verifying. It can run in parallel to increase productivity. So it's automated, no manual handoffs, and we can drop from 2 weeks to 2 hours. It's a very repeatable process in a lot of companies. So you need to rethink work in an increasing complexity of use. We start with a chatbot that sits on your computer, and it's a productivity tool, and you potentially becoming more productive, you're editing files, you're doing that sort of stuff. And then you move into using a coding agent, and maybe it's wrapped in UX, like cowork, but it essentially allows you to access your computer through a CLI. And then you start to be a little bit more productive. And then maybe these workflows are extending, and they include more steps, and they include more people, and maybe it's within your BU or team, and people use it together. But what we're working towards, where we're going with this, is the agentic enterprise, a coordinated action of agents across the entire operational model. So you need to redesign work to take advantage of new technologies. When electricity came into the factory floor, it just replaced the steam agent with a dynamo, and nothing really changed. The factories kind of stayed the same, and there was not a lot of productivity increase. What we figured out is that we can take an electric motor and put it on stations, because this technology is different. We can wire the entire factory floor with really thin cables, because it's not a steam engine. And then work changed Factories became extremely productive, and we've seen the productivity increase in 1920s, taking us up to today. A similar piece of work needs to be done with a large language model. Using a large language model should not marry you to a single company. It's a commodity. If you've been using Copilot in your organization this month, you're going to get a very different invoice from the last few months. SaaS as well, not this time. Pre-built, one-size-fits-all solutions miss the entire point. And the market agrees with me. 1.2 trillion was wiped out from SaaS valuations recently. Some would claw back, some would, there's some winners and losers, but it's definitely going in that direction. So much so that Mark Benioff, the grand wizard of SaaS himself, concluded that Salesforce is going to become a database within this new reality. A system of register. The UI has no more meaning. It's not important. He's fighting for keeping Salesforce relevant by saying that it has its data inside it. It's actually your data, so we'll see how far that's going to go. This is too strategically important not to own. When the operating model itself becomes software, are you going to rent it for somebody else? Kirkland and Ellis spent $500 million in building their own technology. They're a law firm. Okay, this is how important they think competitive advantage of AI is. By investing so much money into a law firm building custom AI. And you don't need to invest $500 million to do that, because cost of writing software is dropping. We've seen in the past year explosion of productivity in coding. The most GitHub submissions we've ever seen, the most app release we've ever seen. Yes, a lot of it is not useful, doesn't have product market fit. What I'm trying to say is that it's very easy to write software. That's not the moat anymore, that's not the challenge. I love this quote. Software should be like pizza, cooked right then and there at the moment of use. You don't want mass-produced industrial-scale software. You want bespoke custom software made for you at that moment. And Stripe does about 1,300 pull requests per week autonomously. They have a great blog post on minions and how they use them. I think it's a really interesting read. So we need to invest in creating the glue that connects models, knowledge, workflows, and people. Today, most enterprises look like this. You have your ERP, you have CRM, maybe a few SaaS tools, but the glue is humans. Spreadsheets, emails, calls, rekeying data. The context is a bunch of PDFs at best, and a lot of it is in people's brains. The agentic enterprise looks a little bit more like this. You have your vision, strategy, and operating model. You need to set the course. You have harness, a bunch of tactical stuff to make sure that the model is working. Context, your business context, all the information in the business, and the experience of how this is exposed to people. And obviously, security, governance, all of that stuff. The operational model of the company becomes code. It moves from being a bunch of PDFs, SharePoint, static documents, into code. Therefore, it inherits the properties of code. It can be versioned, it can be diffed, tested, rolled back, forked. Governance stops being a policy PDF. It becomes a runtime constraint. The action space the agents are allowed to operate in. The operating model becomes a deployable, composable asset rather than a deck. So I just want to be clear about this. I'm talking about using LLMs at a scale. So you will have your cloud provider, Azure, AWS, Google. You can also do this on-prem if you can wire it up at that scale. You have the model. There's many models, maybe more than one. And you need to build this abstraction layer that connects it to your enterprise business. An agent at scale is its own problem. You need to do boring stuff like managing things at scale, in the same as you do with a cloud computer. One server versus managing many is a completely different task. You need to provision, observe, instantiate. Cloud agent infrastructure is real. Harness gets a lot of light at the moment. Without going too technical, it is essentially the plow around your horse. This is kind of the metaphor that is used the most. If you have a horse and that's an LLM and you want to plow the field, you need to build a harness to use it in a useful way. It's a tactical solution to manage many agents. Excuse me. There's different options. There's open source protocols. There's a lot of stuff about it. There's also ontology and context design. The relationship between your data and language. We need to agree on what things are called in the enterprise in your organization, because the model doesn't want to guess it. We don't want to spend money on guessing. We don't want to token max your entire context every single time. And context has to be explicitly designed. Needs to be, this is work that needs to happen. And in enterprise, your context is the moat. So I'm going to explain it. This is simplified, but I think it does the job. If you have your CRM, or let's say a core banking solution and marketing, same stuff is called in different ways. You have a client, you have an account holder, you have a customer. Nobody quite sure if they're talking about the same thing. This gets represented in code. So system maps its data to the shared business concept. Then we need to think about when and how surface the experience. It needs to be highly personalized, efficient experience, fast to prototype, easy to adapt, better accessibility, and task completion. So you need to define this glue to implement agent at scale, because you want to go from a general purpose AI model all the way to a reliable worker. So you want to connect it to your systems, your data, your tools. You want it to know your business, how your team actually works, follow your processes, and check its own work. And you need to think how far you will go with autonomy. There's the deterministic path. It's like a blueprint. The agent executes the same steps every single way. It doesn't deviate, it doesn't make any decisions. Autonomous. You have human in the loop, but the model is allowed to make some decisions. It knows how to surface it to a human at the right point in time, what decisions it can make and what decisions it can't. And it goes all the way fully to autonomous. So an agent that runs completely autonomously, OpenClaw is an example of autonomous agent. If you worked with Claude with dangerous skip permissions on, which is how a lot of agentic engineering is done, it's similar. And an agentic enterprise is a combination of all three of those. So what is the role of humans in this? The human role will be determining what problems to solve. Taste, experience, applying that to the work. They need to invent new products and services. And they're going to be optimizing these workflows from above. Now, humans are finite. The long pole in the tent. So it's kind of hard to think about this now at the point that we are, but this stuff is moving very, very fast. So when things will really start to automate, when more and more software is going to be written at a huge scale, we need to think how to deploy actually the most precious resource, the humans. You need to design a system that can actually handle that bottleneck. And Jevons paradox, we already see that in real life. So William Stanley Jevons, in his book, The Coal Question, in 1865, talked about the steam engines. And he saw that increase in resource efficiency due to technological progress leads to lower cost, which in turn dramatically expands demand. So as the steam engine improved and we used less coal in the steam engine, it actually made people buy even more steam engines and automate even more stuff. And we see this already in software engineering, because this is where automation penetrated the most. Hiring is up. Demand for software engineers is up, because increasing code efficiency expands demand for engineers. And they are a finite resource. So even if all software is wipe-coded, somebody needs to understand what it is and to maintain it. So even if the role is narrowing, because there's a lot of automation, you still have a limited amount of people. Similarly, will happen to all knowledge work. Apollo recently released a report that there's zero evidence of AI-related job losses. And another area where we see a lot of automation is in call centers. And employment is actually rising because the simple cases are being removed by AI, and you have more time and more space to resolve more complex cases, and you want to chase that high-quality score. And I just want to leave us with one thought, because I had to share this a graphic because it's so, so cool, and it just, again, reminds us how early we are, despite the fact that we're moving so fast. Each dot here is 3.2 million people. Red dot is people that are using agentic engineering today. Yellow is people that are using AI and paying for it. Green are free users of AI, and the rest have never used AI, which is incredible. So, how do we solve this glue? I can talk about the AI predictive platform that Elsewhen developed. It's not a SaaS solution. It's a set of components to accelerate delivery. You will end up owning the IP, but I will do that in another talk. So if you're interested, please join me at 5 p.m. today at Scale Stage, where I'll go through the different parts and components of how Elsewhen solves this problem. And also, please say hi to my team at booth 107. Thank you very much.